April 24, 020, Topi Haltu. Toivo and Elisa were holding hands and walking in the Rovaniemi market square. Elisa looked into Toivo's eyes with her deep, beautifully shining emerald eyes, and the sun was warming them nicely as they arrived at a vanilla-scented ice cream stand. "2 ice creams, please," said Toivo, after which Elisa and Toivo walked to a parking lot behind which there was a beautiful, glittering pond. They sat down on an old wooden street bench on the shore of the pond. Toivo looked at Elisa's delicate hands and the emerald ring glittering on her finger, and said, "I love you, Elisa," as mallards and swans swam close to the shore. Suddenly, without Toivo and Elisa realizing it, a black van drove into the parking lot, and its door slid open. The distance between the van and Toivo and Elisa was a couple of 100 meters. Behind the van, a soulless black angel in his black tuxedo leaned against a supported sniper rifle. A microchip chirped in his brain, and his pitch-black eyes looked through the rifle's scope. He ground his teeth, and black drool dripped from his mouth to his chin as he grunted a dark laugh. And almost like whining and howling, he uttered, "Toivo! Toivo!" Elisa stared into Toivo's eyes, and suddenly a bang-like sound was heard, causing the birds on the shore to burst into flight. A huge red stain spread across Toivo's shirt, and blood burst from his nose and mouth as he collapsed into Elisa's lap. Elisa screamed Toivo's name at the top of her lungs, which sounded to Toivo like a shout underwater. And then everything went dark before his eyes. Toivo woke up in a brightness where a radiant white pearl hovered in the air. He approached the pearl, which emitted a humming sound, and upon touching it, Toivo felt a pulse and saw himself from above in an ambulance as paramedics resuscitated him with electricity. Then the brightness covered Toivo, and he seemed to descend inside the pearl, into the middle of a pond, in the depths of which various gemstones and gold glittered. A pulsating emerald forest surrounded the pond, and as Toivo walked barefoot on the pond's waters, an angelic choir began to sing in the sky. "You are stepping onto holy land, into the midst of pulsating life. The brightness in your heart marks the beginning of the final battle. Step through the ages inside the dim stone." 2. I arrived in the emerald forest, and my image reflected from the trees. I was dressed in a white glittering robe with decorated gemstones on its chest. I arrived at a stone pulsating with a dim small light, and the voice of our Savior was heard. "Brighten the stone of my forest, and face the guardian angel's wrath in the world of shadows." 2. Suddenly, the stone's dim brightness sucked me in. I stepped through a moving liquid green wall and woke up in a dark dungeon, chained by my feet to a stone wall. Rats scurried across the floor, and I saw old iron bars beyond which opened a medieval castle courtyard. I saw people dressed in old-fashioned pointy hats and leather shoes rolling wine barrels in the yard, while the castle jester entertained the audience with card and fire tricks. Behind the bars stood a 2-meter-tall knight on guard, holding a long battle axe. Suddenly, in the twilight of the night, a hooded fellow ironed bed and listened to the squeaking of the rodents scurrying in my cell. Suddenly, in the twilight of the night, a hooded fellow appeared at the bars with a torch in his hand, partially illuminating the cell as the rats fled the light. "Psst, I am a shadow," he said, and a hand took a bunch of keys and opened the cell door. I arrived in the castle courtyard with him late at night. The guards were in a deep sleep. Suddenly, a flash like lightning struck, but on the ground, and the shadow was gone. I looked at my clothing and saw I was dressed in a holy sackcloth, wondering how I had ended up in the Middle Ages. Suddenly, flaming arrows covered the sky, some of them whizzing right next to me, burning. Alarm horns sounded around the castle, followed by a shout. "Giants and the Skull Gang are attacking! To arms!" The huge guard with the battle axe roped up and yelled at me to stop. I started running towards the flowing river that surrounded the castle. Just as the big man was catching up to me and about to throw his battle axe at me, a flaming arrow pierced his head, going in through his eye and out the back of his head, setting his head on fire. I jumped into the river's strong current, practically diving in. As I sank deep into the darkness of the river, I saw a burning, fiery hand underwater in the dark that grabbed me. It was a fire angel who quickly yanked me to the surface and up into the air toward the starry sky. We flew together over a gloomy forest, and with a burning voice he said, "This is your final war, Toivo," before letting go, and I dropped into a black forest oozing with rot. I touched the skin of my foot as I landed in some kind of swamp area, and drew a golden dagger from a sheath tied to my leg, which glowed with light in the dark forest. I saw hairy, red-eyed, pulsating creatures behind the trees. All I had to do was point the light-glowing dagger at them, and they fled into the forest, grunting and shrieking. Suddenly, black tree roots wrapped around my body and started dragging me towards a black cube pulsating in the middle of the forest, which got its energy from the black sap of the trees, and I lost consciousness. I woke up with the black roots wrapping my naked body against a black stone, which was a cube in the middle of a temple. The stone pulsed with dark light, seemingly communicating with death demons that floated to the scene. One of them took off its black hood, revealing a head formed of multiple skulls whose bony teeth ground together. The creature held a sword dripping with black, poisonous matter and shrieked, "Let us sacrifice Toivo to the guardian angel." Then the word veritas seemed to be etched into my mind. The creature thrust the poisonous sword into my stomach, and my veins began to turn black. At the same time, the stone started to suck my tainted blood. I screamed, gasping, "Veritas!" and saw the bony roof of the temple being torn off. The fire angel tore me away from the stone and soared into the sky. A massive lightning bolt struck the sky, lighting it up entirely. And from there, Christ rode forth, holding a huge sling, with which he caught the black stone and swung it around in space until it sparked and caught fire. Then Jesus hurled it into space, where it sank into a pitch-black planet that seemed to burst entirely into flames. There, all the lost souls screamed alongside the guardian angel. Then God blew, and this planet of fire plunged forever further into the void. Next, I woke up at Bright Pearl Gates, where my smiling sister, mother, father, and grandmother hugged me and said, almost in unison, "Welcome to the kingdom of heaven." "You too, Elisa," my mother said. I turned to look and saw Elisa dressed in the most beautiful, light-glittering dress, but even more radiant than her suit of light was Elisa's broad, smiling face. We hugged, and brightness